Hi there, and welcome to the HFS Career Podcast. My name is Dr. Lori Bullock, and I'm an assistant professor at MSU in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies. I teach several courses in the department, and one of them is HDFS 270, which is a course that introduces students to our major and to the field of family science. Quite often, students who are new to our major are not sure of the kinds of career options they have with a degree in human development and family studies. Some students know exactly what they want to do after graduation, and some students aren't sure, and they can often feel sometimes overwhelmed. There are also students who are in this major but plan to pursue careers in healthcare after graduation. These are students who want to be physicians or physician's assistants or nurses or child life specialists or occupational therapists and so on, many of the healthcare fields. The purpose of this podcast is to bring on professionals from many areas that relate to HDFS. Each episode, I invite professionals from the community who have an HDFS background or a background that is similar to HDFS. I'm so excited to have you here today, and I hope the information in this episode will be helpful to you as you consider your career options. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Okay. Hello, HDFS students and colleagues. I have a great guest for us today in today's episode. I'm so excited for you to meet her. Her name is Jessica Altenberger, and she is a child life specialist who works at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. So I'm going to read a little bit about her bio information, so we have a little bit of a background about her before we dive into some questions for Jessica. So Jessica is a certified child life specialist who is passionate about research, advocacy, and leadership. She believes in taking a strengths-based approach to meeting the needs of pediatric patients in medical crises. And she feels it's a great honor to help support the resiliency of families during the most vulnerable times of their lives. Jessica earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in child development right here in our Department of Human Development and Family Studies, with a minor in bioethics from Michigan State University. Clinically, she completed her internship at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, specializing in areas of cancer and blood disease, outpatient clinic, and cardiac intensive care unit. At Metro Health University of Michigan, she supported patients in both the Outpatient Surgery Center and the emergency room. Currently, Jessica is a child life specialist, one at Cincinnati University or Cincinnati Children's Medical Center in the Cancer and Blood Disease Institute. Her skills of quick rapport building and providing developmentally appropriate education and creating therapeutic activities to promote healthy coping makes Jessica an excellent child life specialist. So Jessica, thank you so much for joining my podcast today and to share your career journey, your experiences. So I'm so excited to have you here today and for my students to learn from you.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I was also a student in your class, and so this is really full circle, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So with that in mind, my first question to you is, can you tell us a little bit about you? Explain maybe a little bit about what is a child life specialist and about your current position.
Absolutely. So, a child life specialist is a child development professional who helps children and families cope with hospitalization. Um, I like to explain to families that I'm in the medical field, but I'm not a nurse or a doctor. I'm just there to support them. Kind of similar in some ways to a social worker, kind of similar to a teacher. But really, my job is just to be there for families and help kids understand what's going on with their bodies, any procedures that we're doing with them, giving them any education about any diseases or illnesses they have, and kind of walking alongside families in the journey of, in my role, having cancer or any healthcare journey. We're just there to help however we can and help everyone cope.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Just a kind of a quick follow-up question. Is there such a day or such a thing as a typical day? for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. The one thing that I love about child life is every day is different. I think everyone in healthcare would say that. You never know what's going to happen next. But a typical day for me might look like getting a report from an emergency room child life specialist about a new diagnosis that came in last night. I might then go talk to my medical team or social workers about who is the patient, what does their family system look like if they know, and what diagnosis we've given them. For instance, a typical leukemia diagnosis. To me, that means, all right, one, we need to tell them they have cancer soon, talk to their family about how they want to tell them. Any siblings, how do I communicate with them and also coach the family system through this big change and supporting all the different roles of their children. I also know that they're probably going to get a central line, and so I need to prepare the child for what that looks like and also support that procedure if they're going to be awake for it. Meeting them, assessing their psychosocial needs, discussing what I can do to help them in their hospitalization, introducing the playroom, bringing toys to their room for normalization and coping, because the hospital can be such a scary environment. I might also do some sibling support where like doing activities with siblings to make them feel noticed and seen, and also help them cope with understanding what's happening to their sibling and how their family system is going to be disrupted for a little while. I might do some emotional support with families of no family ever expects their child to be diagnosed with cancer. And so really kind of sitting with them and understanding the emotional toll of what that means and how scary the future might now seem. I also might, go help with other kids who've been in treatment for a long time and do procedure support. So thinking about a child who's getting a port access, I might be the one to tell them the steps the nurse is going to do. I may have my iPad and we could be playing games and make it fun and interactive so that they're not paying attention or they're not as anxious about what's happening during the port access. Following up with long-term families, some of my patients are in the hospital for hundreds of days. And so it's getting creative with therapeutic activities of how do I keep them engaged and keep them, growing and developing and processing all that's happening. And then on the other side too, I may do some like grief support or end of life support. It is a really tough part of my job, but it's also something I feel so honored to do, is to kind of walk with families through that grief. And there's no such thing as like, I can't make any death better, but I can also like help it be what the family wants it to be and kind of honor each child in that way too. So it's very multifaceted, but I love that I get to wear many, many different hats.
I'm so glad you explained that. I mean, I heard so many important things in that description of your typical day.
Yeah.
It just sounds like there can be so much into it. But I love that. I love that you're there to try to provide some sense of normalcy to the child and the patient, or child and the family, and to help the siblings and the family through that process. It's just such, that makes you such an invaluable role in their lives. So I'm so glad. So thank you. Thankful that you do this.
Of course, it's the best job ever. So I'm happy to share about it.
Yeah. So my next question is, what made you choose this career path?
Yeah, so I was in your class in HDFS 145. When I came to Michigan State, I was an undecided major. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I took HDFS 145 to kind of dip my toe and see what is human development family studies all about. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to work with children, and I didn't see myself as a teacher. And so with the help of you and the counselors at Michigan State, we kind of were able to explore lots of different career options with children, but not necessarily being a school teacher. And the minute I read about Child Life Online, I knew it was exactly what I wanted to do. I love being in the fast-paced healthcare environment. I love being the helper and going to sit with families in the biggest, most terrible time of their life and being able to be there and like know how to help them. Yeah, it was as soon as I read it, and then I kind of was like, I got to figure out how to get there. But it really was sitting in your class and just learning about, there's so many different careers you can do with an HDFS degree.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So glad that helped too. Yeah. So from once you graduated, I'm sorry, this wasn't on the list of questions, but I just kind of thought about this. So once you graduated from the major here, how did you move forward into the child life specialist area? What like further training and things did you do?
Yeah,
Did you have?
absolutely. Um, in college, I did a lot as well. A lot of getting your hours for child life is in volunteering. So finding any opportunities to work with children. I worked at the Child Development Lab at Michigan State, as well as getting volunteer hours in the hospital or with any like nonprofit that works with children in like stressful areas, or children with disabilities, or Boys and Girls Clubs, stuff like that. Um, so for child life, you do volunteering, and then you can do a practicum, which is usually about 120 hours of you just observing a child life specialist. I think it's hard to understand what it really looks like until you see it sometimes. And then after your practicum, you do an internship. And so right after I graduated, literally 2 days after, I drove down to Cincinnati and did my internship here for that summer. And then from there, you sit for an exam. So I sat for the child life certification exam, and then that's when I got a job at Metro, and then eventually moved back to my job down here in Cincinnati.
Okay. Well, thank you for describing that too. I think that's really helpful for students who are seriously thinking about this. Um,
Yeah.
and and based on you and other students in the past who have come to me for recommendation letters, I knew that there were some steps, but didn't know exactly what that looks like.
Yeah, and I
So,
think it can look there's some like steps you have to do, but I think it looks different for everyone. And I was really lucky that I figured out what I wanted to do my freshman year of college, but not everyone does. And so there are lots of different child life master's programs or online certifications or other ways you can take classes, even if you graduated from your undergrad and hadn't started. So I think a lot of child life students find themselves in that position of senior year. They finally find the profession they know they're meant to do. So you absolutely, there's still many ways to get there, no matter your timeline.
well, that's good to know. Good to know.
Yes.
All right. Um, well, actually, it kind of answers my next question. It was, what advice do you have for students who might be interested in pursuing this career? But you've kind of just explained that. Other than where should they go to find out more about what it takes? Should they talk to their HCFS advisor, are there other avenues or sources that they should get in contact with or
Yeah.
look into?
Absolutely. The field of child life is managed by the Association of Child Life Professionals, the ACLP. So you can find the most up-to-date information on their website. I believe it's childlife.org. But if you just look up the Association of Child Life Professionals, they have the most current up-to-date policies and practices for certification. The counselors at MSU are wonderful. They helped me a lot kind of figure out like what to do to get there, but of course, in any big organization, they change their minds a lot or things change. So for the most up-to-date information, I would go online, but also just like connections is really helpful, asking questions to the right people. I volunteered at Sparrow, and their child life team was really helpful to me throughout my college years of just like asking simple questions about like, I'm thinking of doing my practicum here, or what else should I be working on to get to the next step? So as much as you can network, there's also a really wonderful organization called the Great Lakes Association of Child Life Professionals, which is like our regional child life group. And that was so helpful to me during my college years and now still, of being able to network with child life specialists in the state and in the region of the Midwest. Again, making connections, getting advice from people, and then also they're the people that you're going to be applying to their programs. So building those connections has been really helpful as well.
Great. That was a really nice segue into what I was going to ask next too. And you might have already answered these questions just by that answer. So that's awesome. Because you talked about networking and building connections in the field and how important that is.
Yeah.
You talked about the professionals and organizations that you've networked with. And so did a great job of explaining how to do that and how important that is.
Yeah.
No matter, like you said, volunteering at Sparrow, just being a volunteer and you learn from the people around you and connect with them.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, and there's
important.
so many student groups at Michigan State that are focused on children as well. And so finding opportunities just in student clubs is really awesome too, as well as through the department. I worked on a couple different research studies for Dr. Valton, Dr. Brofier during my undergrad, and that helped me so much of getting my hours of working with children, and also just having a better scope of practice of like understanding so much more for my education in HDFS. I also think when I was in college, I looked at networking as like, I felt like it was very like businessy and had to be like very formal. And I think the biggest takeaway I had in becoming a professional is like, it's just all about the relationships. And I think if you're an HGFS major, you're likely very good at building relationships. And so it's just seeking out, asking questions, getting to know other people. And that goes a really long way. That doesn't have to be super formal or like dressing up for a business event. It can just be like, talking to other professors about their research or getting on different research studies, finding new student groups, meeting specialists at the hospital, meeting people at other events, and just kind of getting to know them. And like that goes a long way, and they'll remember you and help you in this path.
Great. That's really important, I think, and helpful for students to know. It's basically just a matter of putting themselves out there, but like you said, you don't have to be dressed in a business suit to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kind of when you learn about this person, ask them questions and,
Yeah.
ask to connect. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's great. You had mentioned like student groups and stuff. Are there any off the top of your head that you recommend, or just kind of should they search and
I
look
think you
for?
can search. I'm not sure if the ones that I was involved with are still around. I led a group called Students Care. I don't know if it's still there, but we focused on volunteering through the hospital at Sparrow. But really, I feel like anything with children or families is going to be so helpful. I mean, even any unique experience. Like I've had some child life students who did a lot of work in like juvenile facilities. And I mean, any work you can get with children and families is going to be super helpful. So I don't have any specifics, but I really think pretty much anything you can swing to add in of like how that will help you in your professional career.
Yeah, I could see where that would be helpful too, because then you get an idea of the different dynamics that can
Yes.
happen in families. And so thinking about that within a hospital setting and, how do you support and help them, the
Yeah,
different family?
absolutely. And going back to kind of my typical day in the life, I work with children. I work at a children's hospital, but there's some cancers that we see more in pediatrics. So pediatric oncologists know how to treat it better. So I actually serve people from like infants to like 0 to like 50-year-olds.
Oh,
So yeah, it's really interesting. It's like, or my peers, like anyone who's like in their 20 to 30s, I work with them as well. And a lot of times they're children. But an education in HDFS like prepared me for that, of like knowing the different stressors and the different things that happen at every stage of life and how that could impact their coping. I also work with families from the like Ohio, Kentucky area, but we also have families that come to our hospital from all over, especially from the United Arab Emirates. We have, I would say, about 30% of my population is from overseas. And so working with kids who might not speak English or with families who come from different areas of the world is really, really helpful. And again, adding that into I'm like thinking of like Bronfenbrenner, of like how this all impacts their family system and how it's hard enough having cancer. Imagine being across the world and not knowing what your nurse is saying to you all day.
yeah.
So like I said, any diverse experience of volunteering is so helpful. It will be so useful.
Yeah, that's really good to know. Really
Yeah.
important. Good. Okay, so what's my next question? Oh, here's one. Knowing what you know now, what do you wish you had known in your college and early career?
Yeah. Um,
I know you've addressed quite a lot of things that somebody might want to know.
yes, I think for me, it was like I knew from the moment I read it, like that's what I want to do. And I was pretty driven to get there. I think though it was really helpful looking back that I did allow myself to kind of explore for that first year of college and like really take time to figure that out. when I came in, my dad's in business. And so I felt really like I should probably just go to business school and be like my dad, but allowing myself to actually take the time to figure out my interests and what I want out of life, and especially out of my career, um, was really helpful. And I'm really grateful for that because it worked out very well for me. Um, I also think it's just going back to the relationships. I mean, I keep in touch with a lot of professors from Michigan State. I keep in touch with a lot of child life specialists from other hospitals that I either volunteered at or did student programming with. And it's so great when we run into each other at conferences or working on either presenting to classes like this, or working on projects and initiatives and hearing about what they're doing at their hospital and how I can bring it to mine or vice versa. Putting energy and thoughtfulness into relationships has made a world of difference to me. And it's how I ended up where I am. And I'm so grateful for that and so grateful for everyone that helped me get here.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have really built a knack for building connections
Yeah.
and allowing yourself time and to just explore. And
Mhm.
that was really helpful, that first year in college of not just, rushing to find the first thing, but just really looking around until you
Yeah.
found the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think Michigan State provides so many opportunities. And so I don't think it's very common that people graduate with a child development degree and a minor in bioethics, but it was exactly what I needed, where I took a lot of classes in the bioethics major about, um, religion or so many other things that kind of aided in the child life profession too, even as though it was from a totally different school. And so explore other classes while you're there, while you can. There's so much that you can learn and that you can bring into your practice and whatever you do that might not be just in your major. And so think about that wisely of like, what other classes interest you, or how do you think that could um, add some richness to your career?
Yeah. It's great. Great to know. So it's all good, great information. Um, so what do you see for yourself in the future in terms of your career?
Yeah. It's really hard. I love my job and I could see myself doing my job forever, but I also know there's other things I want to pursue in terms of leadership. I actually went back to Michigan State and got my master's from the business school. I don't think my LinkedIn's up to date, but I got my master's in healthcare management. Michigan State has an awesome online program that worked really well that I could still work full time, but still get my master's. Um, and so I think with that degree and in my career trajectory, I see myself as having more leadership opportunities in the field of child life, whether it be being a child life manager or eventually maybe being in like patient services of a hospital. I'm really passionate about the work I do, so I think I'll still be rooted in that somehow, but maybe at like a higher level.
Awesome. That's great. And so my last question is it okay if students contact you if they have questions? And if so, how should they contact you?
Absolutely. I love talking to child life students. I'm happy to talk to anyone, even if you're just exploring the idea of it. I did have a hard time in college of it's a small career field, and so not a lot of people know about child life or about what it takes to get there or about the certification process. So I am always happy to talk to anyone by email or phone or whatever works for you. Dr. Bullock has my email. You could also find me on LinkedIn very easily, but I will make sure I send you my emails too.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And which one is best for you
Sure.
to hear from students? And then, yes, like you mentioned, search for Jessica on Jessica Altenberger on LinkedIn. And so you can connect with her there.
Mhm.
We happen to know that for your internship class, that is an expectation for you anyways. Dr. Scott Madison will have you do that, create a LinkedIn profile. So Jessica is somebody you can connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, great. Okay, so it has been fun having you on the podcast today in our very first episode. So I really appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your day to join me and answer a lot of questions that I know that students have. And so I hope that after hearing all this wonderful information that you gave, that it inspires them and also puts them at ease, maybe, because we know how anxiety provoking this can be, thinking about your future. And so really thank you for taking the time to talk about your journey and what's next for you as you continue on.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was so great to come back.
Yeah. Thank you again for logging in today to join us for today's episode of the HFS Career Podcast. I hope you enjoyed meeting Jessica and learning from her career journey. As I mentioned at the end of the interview, you can find Jessica's contact information in the show notes. She is happy to answer any questions you may have about becoming a child life specialist. She is always great about being willing to meet with students, to talk with them, whether through email or perhaps through a Zoom interview or Zoom session or something like that. So please, if you are interested in being a child life specialist and want to know some more information, feel free to contact her. And also, I will post some of the resources that she talked about, that she mentioned. I'll post those links also. So please join me again soon for interviews with other professionals to learn more about the many options that you have available to you after pursuing this degree. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.